Hello. Happy Tuesday. It's 7 o'clock on the dot. No, I'm joking. I'm totally joking. But it is 7 p.m. Eastern here in West Philadelphia. I'm so happy to be Tuesday at Black Campaign School. So, wherever you are, I hope that you are having a good start to the week. We've got folks who are watching us on YouTube. We have folks tuning live from blackcampaignschool.org, or you may be watching this back when the time is right for you, making a little meal for your family. Wherever you are, I hope you're comfortable. I hope you're grounded. I hope you're empowered and that you know that Black Campaign School is here to give you all of your Black. So let's get into tonight's topic. I'm really, really looking forward to digging in here. I had some fun with this one. All right. So tonight, we're going to do respect. Let's get up in here. Let us talk about money, power, and respect. I could go a lot of different directions with this, really, truly. Um, I'm tonight. I'm doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But what I want to say is when I was kind of visioning this summer series, I knew that I wanted to go broad enough that we could talk about big things, the big buckets of our political industry, the big buckets of information about Black political engagement. But I also wanted an opportunity to really tell the truth about some things that I've been learning as a way to give you something different that you may not get in another place. And so that's the approach I took here is I could go many different directions when you're talking about money in politics, when you're talking about power in the United States, and in particular when you're talking about respect for Black people. Like so many directions. But tonight I'm going to focus us on elections in general and really some of the really key ingredients of what I call, and many people call, the election industrial complex, really the economy and the engine that runs the electoral industry. So that's where I'm going to spend some time. If you are able to comment on YouTube, go ahead and do that. You know I love it. If not, I hope that you will continue to reach out to me, share your comments about this space. I have been loving it. Every single class grows every week. It's been really cool to, between each class, hear your comments, hear your questions, just engage with all of you. So let's keep it going. Fourth class on deck, baby. Money, power, respect. We have 2 more classes for our summer series. I cannot believe it is going so fast. And right now, these are wild card classes. I intentionally left these open. Of course, I have some ideas. But I do want to hear from you. So we have a survey. I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat on YouTube, as well as so that we could post it on StreamYard here. But if you are signed up for our email list, so if you are currently getting emails from us, you got this. You got this today. So go back in your email, look for Black Campaign School, and I want you to fill out this survey. It's really quick. It's like 2 minutes, I promise. And all I'm doing is asking you what more you want. What more you want to hear about? Who are you actually? And what would make you tune in to a series like this? Because I'm going to keep growing this space for us. I'm going to make sure that we continuously have the information that we need to make good voting decisions, to engage our communities, and also just to be talking about Black people and Black voting with the power, the rigor, and really the honesty that we all deserve. Okay? All right. I cannot wait to see what y'all say about these next 2. And I've been sharing a lot of information in general. I hope that you go back. I've been hearing people say, I actually just had a phone call today where someone was like, I was on State of Black Voters and I learned this. I love that. I want to offer this free for you because it's important to just get this information out. If you are learning anything from me, if you're learning anything from this space, will you share it? Let someone know. I learned this at Black Campaign School. I have this bit of information. I learned this at Black Campaign School. Share the YouTube link, share the website, and help us grow this community and this body of work. All right. And in this space is where we talk about the political and government system. At Black Campaign School, we know we operate in a system. I'm going to talk more about that, especially as we get into power, but we are not confused about the fact that part of our job, both as citizens, but also as people who have been left out intentionally of the design of this system, is to always be working to navigate it. And so this space is to allow us to be honest about what that system is, but also have some tools. So you're going to get a little bit of both from me in here. And our agenda tonight, we're talking money, power, and respect. When we talk about money, we're going to talk about the electoral industrial complex, and we're going to talk about campaign finance rules. For power, we're talking about 5 layered systems of power. And we're also going to talk about mapping it, what some of the tools are that we use to be thinking about power. And we are going to end our conversation talking about respect. RESPECT. We can't get enough of it. We need more of it. And so we're going to tap into that tonight. As always, I want to share my citations with you. I enjoyed putting this together for you. There's a great organization that's doing really good polling on state-based elections. It's called State Navigate. Open Secrets is a place where you can see all campaign finance information. You can see who's donating where. Brennan Center for Justice, I've actually used for every single one of these presentations. They are treasure troves of information about civic life in the United States. And then the good old Federal Election Commission. It is a part of our federal government. It oversees elections, but more than that, it is the standard bearer around the rules of elections. And so if you go to fec.gov, you can find so much about the continuously changing rules in our country, making sure we're following them, all of those things. So if you ever want to dig in more to what I provide you here, go to these places. Every single one of these classes has a citation page. And this summer is about preparing us for this fall. This summer is about preparing us for this fall. So right now we're at the top of August. Happy birthday to all of my Leos. Our Virgos are on deck. Happy birthday to Steve P., who produces this space, my good friend and a creative leader in our movement. Happy birthday to all y'all. And on November 3rd, 2026, we have the opportunity to make our voices heard. At least millions and millions of us do. There are 51 million Black people. Nearly 35 million Black people are eligible to vote. That means nothing is holding us back. It means we can get registered. We can make our voices heard. That's 35 million people that we have the opportunity to inspire and engage in November. And so I made this school for you. I made this school so that you could get good information and that you can share it with everyone. We're going to take on this system ourselves, okay? We're not waiting for people to come and save us and give us all the right information. There are those people. And there are hundreds of organizations and people who care about your civic life, who are working to ensure that your vote is protected, who's working right now to make sure that you get out. There are so many incredible people who make the engine of our elections run. And there are so many flaws in this system. There's a lot of information. Sometimes it can be confusing, and that's intentional. And so we want to take on the responsibility for our own lives and our own families. If you're watching this right now, you're probably a nerd like me. You believe you can change the world. You believe you have power and influence. We need you to multiply yourself. We need you to multiply yourself in your job, but we also need you to look around you and think, where have I left people on the table? Where have I not yet engaged in a conversation about whether a person in my family, in my neighborhood is registered to vote? It can be kind of funky to do it which is why we have to remind ourselves that it actually is a responsibility. Even if it's uncomfortable, we have to take it on. And so I hope to give you as much information as possible that you can do that in your own way for where you live in this moment, okay? And right now, polls are closing in the United States. We've got the November election for all of us, but we are still in primary season. I've been talking about this each week. In the very first class, Electoral Justice for the 22nd Century, I actually map all of the different political opportunities that we have on the ballot. Go back, check out those maps, see what's at stake. But tonight, there are huge races on the ballot that actually could make up the outcome of whether the United States Senate is in control by the Democrats, the United States House. And so I want to shout out Wisconsin, Connecticut, Minnesota, Alabama, South Carolina. Voters have been voting all day. They've been voting these last weeks, and the polls are closing in many of those places now and very soon. And so one, we want to count every vote, period, poop, count every vote. We're going to keep our eyes on those states. And I want to give you a little bit of information about what's on the ballot. So in Wisconsin, Connecticut, Minnesota, Vermont, they all have governor's races on the ballot, lieutenant governors, secretary of states, down ballot races that include U.S. Congress. Again, we map that there are hundreds of state level seats on the ballot right now. So if you're in one of those places, you have some incredibly important things to be voting for. Now, South Carolina has a special election today. And so soon we're going to find out who succeeds for the Lindsey Graham seat. We know his sister is on the ballot, who has been backed by Donald Trump. But there's also, an open seat. And so that's going to be a really, really, really important race to watch. One of the things that I didn't get a chance to talk about in my last class that I wanted to mention is that South Carolina in the 2028 presidential election cycle will vote first in the primary calendar. This is huge. This was hard fought by Democratic Party leaders, namely Black women. If you've ever heard of the Color Girls, Minyon Moore, Leah Daughtry, Donna Brazile, don't get me to naming names, etc. Those women have been fighting for institutional change inside the party. One of the ways that the party really met the overwhelming response by Black voters in 2020 is by saying, actually, Black voters as the base of our party deserve not to be the fifth and the sixth primary voter, while these other states go forth and really set out the primary. It's actually Black voters who deserve to have an early voice. And so instead of New Hampshire and Iowa going for it first, South Carolina is actually going to go first. I'll say more about this as we, engage in presidential fights, but really interesting things happening right now, really important things happening in the South. And I want to continue to weave those threads for you. Like, there is a broader political condition that we're all working within, and all of this is ingredients of it. So I want to make that clear. And then there is a special election in Alabama tonight. There's a special election in Alabama, and there is a House race, in particular, a congressional race that could make up the outcome of the control of the Senate for the Democrats. And so while this is a Democratic primary, in November, the outcome of this could mean that the Democrats have control. It's incredibly important because the reason that this district was redrawn was because of that Calais case that we talked about in State of Black Voters. That has meant that what Republican strategy has been is to prevent Black civic participation, preventing it by creating new rules, preventing it by redrawing the maps, preventing it by ensuring that you cannot take into account race in any way in our already broken system. And so Alabama tonight is going to show us what these structural changes has meant for voter participation. As of now, voter participation is up. We are seeing in all of these places where Republicans are looking to depress votes, that actually it's Black voters who are like, you know what, I'm going to make sure that I jump through these hoops and these hurdles. And so shout out to us. Shout out to all of the electoral organizers who are pounding the pavement. But Alabama tonight, all eyes on Alabama, all eyes on Wisconsin, Connecticut, Minnesota, Vermont, South Carolina. These are really, really important. And then next week, we're going to be back here in class as polls are closing in Florida. Florida has an incredibly important U.S. Senate race. Shout out to Angie Nixon. I know so many important organizers who care so deeply about that race, who care so much about Florida and the direction of Florida. And so we've got some really important things happening for Black people next week. Y'all here? Y'all with me? All right. What's up? I see y'all coming into class. Welcome. My name is Bird. I always forget to say that. My name is Jessica Bird. I have worked in elections for over 20 years. I started as a hope and change baby when I was a senior in high school, believing that if we just talk to everybody about voting, then we could create change. But in 2 decades of working the system, managing campaigns, working in all of these social change organizations, what I've learned is it's actually systemic problems that keep us from making our voices heard. And that is so intentional, which is why I founded, adopted, and have led a framework called Electoral Justice. Adopted by the Movement for Black Lives in 2017, electoral justice is the utilization of the electoral system to achieve long-term social and civic transformation. Okay, we do not vote in a vacuum. We do not vote because these people are our saviors. We vote with intention to reduce harm. We vote because every single time we vote, we build power, and all of that accumulates over time. Electoral justice says that actually an election is an inheritance of the things coming before it. And it's also an opportunity to pave the path of the things that we want, right? We know we're in a system. You're going to see this slide every single time because for 20 years of working in elections, I have had 852 million conversations about the system. We operate within a system, and elections are absolutely a part of that. And so tonight, we're talking about the electoral system as it relates to money and power. Last week, we spent time talking about the state of Black voters. I really encourage you, if you care about the crosstabs, if you care about the really geeky stuff like I do, go back and watch the state of Black voters. There is not an organizer or leader, no matter your race. If you care about Black people, if you love Black people, you need to know Black people. You need to know who we are, what we care about, where we live, and what we're thinking about. And what's clear is that Black voters want to be persuaded. We want to be engaged with respect. Over and over again, all of the research, all of the polling is saying that what Black voters want is to have a conversation, not only with honesty about what's really going on, but they actually want to debate the ideas. That's why what's happening at the ballot box is so important. Mainstream media wants you to believe that there are these little meaningless fights where people aren't being strategic, that we're that, you know, the progressives and the Dems and the MAGA and the this. What's happening is that voters are utilizing the system to say, we're fed up with the status quo. We want something different. This chart right here was a part of class last week. And it shows Black Americans' party affiliation. This top line is a representation of the Democratic Party. And while it's not drastic, it's not free falling, this is a pretty stark contrast. I want to give you a better picture of it. We went from almost 66% of Americans saying, I absolutely identify as Democrat in 2013, to just about 50% saying they identify as Democrat. And 50% of all Black voters are saying that they don't believe really in either system, that they're choosing the lesser of two evils. And more Black voters are saying that they identify as independent. But what I learned about the system is that in a two-party system, just saying that you're independent doesn't really have, it doesn't have an anchor. There isn't a organized body of independence. And so what I'm going to spend some time on tonight is talking about how people organize themselves and demonstrate power kind of outside this system in different ways. Y'all following me? So we're talking about the state of Black voters. One of the other things that I want to mention and that I've been thinking about since our last class is about our issues. You know, and in our last class, I named the top issues. And honestly, they've been the same for 20, 30, 40 years. I would probably say 100 and 150 years since our participation, or at least our aspiring participation in this democracy. Black voters have been talking about housing. We've been talking about healthcare. We've been talking about jobs. We've been talking about the environment. And we've been talking about opportunity. And as I've been tracking these primaries, and especially after the last two, where Black voters made up a huge portion of some of these outcomes, Black voters also really care about data centers, and they really care about AI. And so these are things that we should also be thinking about and tracking as well. And also, if you're an organizer right now, these issues they're not just fringe, they're actually winning. So in places that are on the ballot tonight, like Minnesota, like Wisconsin, talking about data centers is at the core of their gubernatorial races, where there are gubernatorial candidates who are actually on the stump saying that they will prevent any new data centers because a multiracial coalition of voters are saying that they don't want them there. And more than just voters on this issue, or more than just Black voters, more than just Dems or progressives, actually, this is data centers and AI is a nonpartisan issue. Both parties voters are overwhelmingly saying that they do not want new data centers in their communities, and that they see the environmental effects of data centers as incredibly harmful and worrisome. Almost 80% of all voters, I'm going to get some data, maybe I'll add this into our next class so that you can really see this. Almost 80% of all voters who are voting this year are saying they don't want new data centers. So these are opportunities for us to have conversations that completely grow the support that we have for all sorts of issues that impact our communities, okay? So let's keep going. There's so much juicy stuff to get to here. Hello there. Hey, doctor, I appreciate you coming back. I believe you were here last week. In North Carolina, so this is one comment I want to read you from YouTube. In North Carolina, independent voters now hold the majority. Republicans are second, and Democrats have gone from first to third place. This is why no candidate can take anything for granted in North Carolina. That is so good. Doctor is in the building. I appreciate you for naming that. Actually, let me keep going because I'm going to talk more about this. But y'all, we are not neatly inside the two-party system. And I don't just keep bringing this up to be an antagonist. I don't, although I don't identify inside of it. For 20 years, I've been bumping up against the two-party system as I try to get incredibly brilliant, bold, people-powered Black women elected across my career. It's been the two-party system that's hemmed up voters' participation. It's hemmed up our ability to truly debate. And we are at a place right now where voters on both sides of the aisle are saying it does not match. So what do we say? Oh, well, get used to it, who cares? No. We interrogate the system. We disrupt it so that maybe we can have something completely different that actually meets the needs of the people. Hello, Dr. Kashi. I hope it's Kashi. Either way, so much love and respect to everybody watching. Keep the comments coming. I enjoy it so much. All right, let's talk about money. Let's talk about money. Like I said, there are a lot of different directions about this. These are some of the ingredients of our bigger, broader money picture, right? We've got capital. We've got, which is real and fake, right? We learned that. We learned that it's like there's money you can touch, and then there's like money that you can trade and do things with. You've got investors. You've got these markets. You've got corporations, businesses. You've got contracts that mean all sorts of things. We have all of this new types of capital and contracts flooding our markets. You have cryptocurrency. You have NFTs and the ways that you can buy and sell art that is worth millions and millions of dollars without ever even having something tangible, right? You've got tax structures, our code, and all of these different rules about how we're allowed to spend our money and be taxed on it, as well as what we have to give our government in order to oversee all of our public services. Money is the material conditions of our environment. Money makes up what we're looking at when we look around our neighborhoods. What's that pothole? Oh, that's about money. What's that street lamp about? That's about money. What is our schooling? That's all money. Anything that you can touch, feel, smell around you has to do with our economic system. Y'all with me? Sure. Oh, okay. So nice to meet you. Capitalism. Okay. This could be, we could do this. We could do this for years. Okay. So this is obviously not going to satisfy all of our understanding of capitalism, but I did want to start us with a definition, because so often people talk about it really flippantly, but we don't actually take a step back and say, what is it that we're talking about? In the United States, we operate under a capitalist system. What Webster says is that capitalism is an economic system in which most means of production, our land, our factories, our capital, our technology, they are privately owned rather than owned by the state or collectively. The word that's doing a lot of work in this definition is privately. One of the things that separates the capitalist system apart from other types of economic systems around the world is the idea of private ownership, is the idea that you have a private market where you can exchange capital and exchange wealth. Another definition is where the allocation of resources, prices, and production decisions are primarily coordinated through private markets, driven by profit rather than a central authority. Other systems, other economic examples are where it's so important that we see our diversity in the way that we think about money and the way that we think about the exchange of goods. We know that so many of us are entrepreneurs and business owners, but also our economy and capitalism is based on labor. We have a labor economy, and you can't talk about labor without talking about race. And so everything in our economy is racialized. And so we don't just have a capitalist system, we have a racial capitalist system, which means every single thing about the private market has to do with the racial hierarchy. And anytime you talk about economics, you cannot divorce it from the idea that Black people used to be considered capital, used to be labor only. And while there are still legal slavery, in particular in our prison system, knowing that our economy is rooted in Black economic labor is a really, really important and a grounding understanding of why we need transformation and not just tinkering at the edges of thinking about money in our country. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent, but I want you to reflect about capitalism. I really do. I want you to talk to your families about it. I had a really great conversation with my godmother, who I know is watching right now. Shout out to my girl, my favorite girl, Mama Betty, and we had a good conversation about DSA and the Democratic Socialists, and how there's a conversation right now about a different type of economic system in this country. And what the mainstream media will do is to scare us into believing that the way things are is the right way and the only way. But actually, new ideas is true democracy. New ideas help us to really debate what it is that we need in order for all of us to participate equally. I love these hundreds. Let's go, baby. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I have so much information for you. So the next slide I'm going to talk about, they directly go together, although it may not seem like they do. Okay. So I'm starting our first section on money, talking about capitalism, talking about the ingredients of our system. Now I want to get us back to our electoral system, because this really, really important thing happened in 2010, and it's called Citizens United. You have heard about it. I remember it was my first year living in DC. I had gone to work for the Obama administration after the election of President Obama. It was an incredibly exciting time in DC. It also was a time as a young person where I was really seeing our system at play. It was the rise of the Tea Party in 2010. And it was when we started to see the white lash of electing the first Black president, the punishment of multiracial people power that showed up in a historic way in 2008. Over those next 2 years, each part of our system, the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, started trying to reduce the power of the people. And what levers did our opposition have? Money. Money is a lever of the right. We know this, okay? So in 2010, Citizens United versus FEC fundamentally changed the way that elections have been run ever since. And 16 years later, that is shown. I'm gonna give you some information now that I want you to sit with, okay? Get your journals out, okay? This information truly blew my mind, because not because I didn't know it. I knew that money in our elections was just out of control, but the numbers are absolutely staggering. So what Citizens United did was it said that that our country, our government, and our Constitution did not have the right to limit corporations or union spending in election. Citizens United essentially ruled that corporations should be considered an individual, a person. And it meant that after we went from one person, one vote, and contribution limits in every state, that meant that you could only give a certain amount per election in order to influence the election. After 2010, corporations could create independent flows of money. Let me explain that better. After 2010, corporations were allowed to give unlimited amounts of money. And the way that they did that was by creating independent spending organizations known as super PACs, or political action committees. There was another Supreme Court case called speechnow.org versus FEC that created this entirely new designation for a political action committee called a super PAC. Not only does a super PAC have private donors, so completely undisclosed donors, but there are no contribution limits. And the only rule, or the defining rule for a super PAC is that it is not allowed to coordinate with the issue campaign or the candidate that it is trying to influence. It has to be completely independent from that central campaign, right? But we know that that's not necessarily keeping them from influencing the campaign and having an outsized influence on the election. A New York Times analysis found that in 2024, 300 billionaires and their immediate families donated more than $3 billion in election spending. That's just 2 years ago. In our presidential election, 300 billionaires spent more than $3 billion, which makes up almost 20% of the combined election giving. In 2010, billionaires were giving 0.3% of election spending. So from 2010, from 0.3% to 2024 to 20% of election spending and $3 billion. This pattern is intensifying. In 2026, Trump's MAGA Inc., which is the Trump Super PAC, entered the 2026 midterm election with $294 million cash on hand. And while these donors are anonymous, a lot of the FEC and a lot of the reporting on it is saying that it's coming from the crypto industry and all of these types of pay-to-play positions. One staggering figure is that Trump's ambassador nominees from 2024, so the ambassador nominees after his election, collectively donated almost $60 million to Trump and GOP committees in the 2 years leading up to their nominations, nearly 3 times the amount of the Democratic president prior. Total 2024 federal election spending reached roughly $15 billion, and a combined state and federal election spending exceeded $20 billion in 2024. This is 10 times the amount of the spending when I entered politics in 2007, 2008. This is more than the economies of a small country. It is more than the budgets of some of our states. And it is certainly more than any of our people are seeing move through their communities. $20 billion in election spending. Huge, huge, huge. Let me see if I have some other numbers that I want to share about that. Top billionaire donors are overwhelmingly Republican, 70% Republicans, 23% big spending for Democrats. And then I think something that's really important that we know, we know the names of these folks. Elon Musk is currently the biggest individual donor of all time. Sorry, I lost my little note. Where's he at? Where is Elon? Okay. Elon Musk is the single largest disclosed individual donor in modern U.S. history. According to FEC filings in 2024, this is 1 year, he gave at least $277 million. The bulk of that, $240 million, went to his PAC, which funded electoral interventions across 7 battleground states, including giving away $1 million checks for voters to get registered. I mean, this is huge. This is huge. If you are an electoral practitioner and you are staring at a voter who's like, our elections are rigged, the billionaires got it, how could you even tell them that that's not true? How could you ever tell a voter when they're looking at billions and billions of dollars that never touch their fingertips? They don't even see. Maybe they get a cookout. Maybe they get a DJ at their polling location. But look, I'm talking to you as people, as citizens, as voters. Our elections have been captured by the 1%, by the ruling class of billionaires. We have billionaires who are buying elections, buying newspapers so they can funnel information in specific ways. I mean, alarm bells around our elections. They are not free and fair. How could they be? I can't buy an election. I couldn't buy a newspaper. All I got is this YouTube channel. I got y'all. And this opportunity to talk directly to you. A billionaire, they're buying the roads, they're buying the radio stations, they're buying the ads. This is unbelievably unfair. It is not democratic. And our people know it. Our people know it. And it's important that we acknowledge it, that we affirm it. We don't tell them lies. We say who it is that is buying out our elections. And what we're going to talk about is how the power of the people is unlimited wealth. The power of the people is way more powerful than $1 billion, because it's not just about our cash money. It's about the resources of our entire community. So let's keep going. Our campaign finance rules, which, like I said, are being bastardized by the richest among us. But in State of Black Voters, I say more about this. But our states regulate our elections. Our states oversee our elections, which means we have 50 plus state rules. So what I want you to do is I want you to go to your Secretary of State, go to fec.gov, and I want you to check out what the rules are where you live. What are the contribution limits? How much are you allowed to give if you wanted to influence the election with your money? In some places, you can give thousands of dollars. Some places it's $500. Some places you really could make your own PAC and give it an unlimited amount of money. How are people moving? Each state has different rules. We know that outside spending has exploded. We went from 144 million in outside PACs to 4.2 billion in outside money. Anytime you hear the term dark money, the reason that people call it dark is because there is no sunlight into who is giving it and why. So a lot of the darkness on the right is because these PACs are being fueled by the prison industry. It's being fueled by, now AI is being fueled by the things that are creating environmental disasters that are killing our people. It's not neutral. These things are not neutral. And look, in a two-party system, it is not to say that billionaires on the left or billionaires in the Democratic space are not also influencing elections. That's why it's so important. We got to talk to each other about what all of this means. And if you're a Black billionaire out there, what's up? What's up? How are you thinking about this? Your peers, the people you're going to dinner with, they're thinking about buying newspapers. Could we get a newspaper? Can we get a radio station? I'm not saying that's the North Star. I'm saying we're navigating this system, and Black people are making a lot of money. Our people are getting poorer. And also a lot of Black people are making a lot of money. So what's up with that? What's the conversation that we need to be having about this? Okay. We've got money moving in our communities with and without us. And we need to have some agency and self-determination about this. So now let's talk about power. Let's talk about power. What's up, Vegas? What's up? I cannot wait to see y'all. This next section, I do a 2-hour masterclass about power at Black Camp. So I've told y'all about our nonprofit Black Camp. It is a totally free gathering for Black leaders. This year we are hosting 4 in each region of the country. We've already done 2. Shout out to Philly and Atlanta. We loved you. And we have 2 more. So coming up in September, we are going to my hometown, a Black Camp Columbus, Ohio, for a Midwest gathering of Black leaders. And then we are headed west to Black Camp Las Vegas, our very first West Coast gathering, where we are going to be with incredible West Coast and Las Vegas leaders. And one of my favorite sessions is about systems and power. And we will spend at Black Camp 2 hours talking specifically about power. I'm only going to give you a taste here, but check out black.camp. See if one of these gatherings could work for you. All you have to do is get to us, and we have prepared a gorgeous classroom for your genius and for us to really look at where we are right now. Okay. So this is what Webster says about power. Webster says that power is the ability, the strength, or the right to do something. I identify power as the ability to influence and control the outcome. Self-determination is power. The ability to move people is power, right? There are so many different ways that we could talk about this. I'm going to talk about it in 2 different ways. One about the layers of power and organizing power. So we know that from birth, we are entering a system of power. From the moment you are born, you are issued a birth certificate. You are placed in an economic class. You inherit a cultural, a social position, and your environment, the media, the news, the things around you, the messages around you, all of that is conditioning you inside this system to believe things about yourself and other people. The 5 systems of power that I go deep in Black Camp are the political and governmental power. I'm going to continue to go deep in this layered system here in Black Campaign School. But we also have the economic system that include our corporate structures, our financial institutions, and labor. We have our social and cultural layer of power that's in us. It's about the way that we are with each other and the types of beliefs and value systems that we have. Legal power is about all of our rules and the way that law enforces and legitimizes all these other systems. Our legal system is the way that we enforce all of the other systems of power. And then our military and security system is a way that we protect that power. So I often say at camp, when I talk about security and when I talk about military, I am not talking about safety. I'm talking about protection, protection wealth, protection of power, protection of, special interests. When we talk about safety, we're talking about what it means for us to stay safe inside a really violent system. Those are 2 different things, okay? I won't go too deep into it tonight, but so much of us want safety in a system that really is talking about securing resources and money. So these are 5 systems of power. Like I said, we're not going to go deep into all of them, but I want to pull out one that I think has a lot to do with the way that we see ourselves electorally, and that's the cultural system. I always think about our power layers as this web. Now, Charlotte here, she's a baddie. She got to make her web. She created this web around her so that the flies can come in, she can get her food, she has a house, et cetera, et cetera. We are navigating this web of systems, these layers of power, all on our own. That's why working together as a collective is so important. We multiply ourselves, multiply our information. But we are Charlotte up in here. And one of the most important layers is around cultural power. We have so much of it as Black people. It is so I think, a privilege and an incredible responsibility to consistently be holding up Black cultural power, be holding up Black contributions to our country. I think that's all of our responsibility right now, is to be reminding everyone that we have so much to learn from Black people in this moment. And I want to talk about the type of culture that makes us believe what it is that we believe. So inside of cultural power, you have your education. Let me make this a little bit bigger so y'all can see. You see this? You have your education layer. It teaches you a particular type of history, a particular type of values. Your media, it frames what's normal. Who's the hero? Who's the threat? What problems are worth caring about? The people who run the media have power, right? That's why it's so important that we are thinking about or have that perspective, that we are constantly seeing how people want us to think versus what we may know is true. Religion, it provides a moral framework that either challenges or reinforces power. Family and community creates expectations, gender roles, racial identities, etc. All of the things around us are a system that tells us what we believe. And for so many of us, we have been told that the two-party system is the only option politically in the United States. This is cultural power of the United States, to be consistently telling us that the only way we can vote is inside of these two bodies. Now, right now, shoot, it is. Some of the people who are voting tonight, they could vote in Republican or Democrat, but they did have to choose. Some places across the country have closed primaries, where if you register as a Democrat, you cannot, unless you re-register, you cannot vote for a Republican. You have to vote in a primary for a Democrat. These types of structural barriers keep us from having much more debate. And it also concentrates our power in these two places. So as the influence of money, it happens in our system, it means that we're as hemmed up as ever. Is this landing? Is this landing? All right, think about this. Think about this in terms of, why do we believe this? Because the two-party system is not in our Constitution. Again, I'm not trying to intentionally be an antagonist. I want to inform us. I have spent years hearing people say, why don't we just have a Black party? Why don't Black people just make their own thing? Why don't Black women or a feminist party? Well, there's a cultural power in people believing that that's not possible. It's not necessarily a structural power. No law requires a two-party system. It does not mandate it. The first two parties were the Federalists and the Democrat Republicans, which were formed in the 1790s. But today's Democrats and Republicans have dominated since the 1860s. And most Americans are frustrated with it. Over 60% or more believe a third major party is needed. But, look, that's just that's being asked of them. We already have multiple identities across the parties taking shape. MAGA, moderate Republicans. There are the Mitt Romney Republicans, right? The Mitch McConnell Republicans. On the Democratic side, you have progressives, you have lefties, Democratic socialists, you have people, they're already debating. And structurally, some of the things that have made this better for us are things like ranked choice voting, which in cities and in places across the country, like California, places tonight in Minnesota and Wisconsin have instituted ranked choice voting, where you can vote for multiple people in a primary, and then whoever gets the most of that vote wins. If the person you voted for didn't get the amount of votes, it goes to your second choice. in places where we have ranked choice voting, there's actually more voter participation because voters feel like they're not just being asked to choose the lesser of two evil, but they're being asked to say who they truly like and trust. Again, so much more to say about this, but a lot is happening on this front already. It's important that we are a part of the conversation and moving the needle for more choices, more democracy. That is what positively benefits Black people. And many democracies use proportional representation. We have a winner take all system, but then in the presidential, we have an electoral college where you have this pretty much private committee of electors that get to make the final decision. In democracies across the world, they have naturally produced multiple parties because when you go and vote, you're voting for multiple leaders that you like or that you would like to see represent you. And then a winner takes all. Complicated and important. All right, we're going to keep digging into this at Black Campaign School. And the last thing that I want to say about this is one of my favorite slides, because oftentimes people will talk about the Democrats or this idea of the parties being this one house, right? And I'll make this a little smaller so you can see. And so we'll say, well, the party should do this, the party should do that. On both sides, people talk about it like this. But the truth is that the party isn't just one house. It really operates more like a cul-de-sac of institutions. And so here I'm going to show you the neighborhood of the democratic institutions that make up this bigger party. So what you'll see here is on the top right, the Democratic National Committee, that's the DNC. The DNC oversees the presidential elections. It oversees the broader committee of electors that are voting on behalf of the direction of the party. But then each of these bodies, state level races, congressional races, US Senate races, each of those have a committee. And those committee is made up of staffers that are raising money to influence the elections, as well as to recruit candidates in those places. Every single institution you see here is not only influencing the election, they're recruiting candidates, and they're also engaging in primaries to make sure that the type of person that they believe that the Democratic Party can elect gets elected. This is where the hemming up starts, though. Okay, because as we concentrate this power, it really means that elections are being decided way before it even gets to the voters. Power, 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 power. This is how the consolidation of power, how gatekeepers start to be able to tell people who is electable and who isn't. Our job is to disrupt that by telling the truth and putting our power together. Dominant power structures, they map power like this. They say, okay, there's a goal. You're going to have people for you. You're going to have people against you. You're going to have people with power, and you're going to have people without power. The way that I learned to be thinking about campaigns is always thinking about who has power and who doesn't. And oftentimes you will not be surprised to hear that the people who have money, the people who have access, the people who can call up a senator, those are the people who are consistently prioritized in our system, consistently put at the top of the hierarchy, the top of the call list of any leader. But when we think about power as relationships, then what we do is map our community based on resources that aren't just about money. This is an example from the CDC. I know, kind of funky. I thought it was just a cool graphic. It's from 2018. The CDC is on all sorts of stuff right now. It is a federal agency, though. But what you see here is a mapping of the modern kind of public health system. And it's an example of how I was trained as an organizer to be thinking about the wealth and the resources of a community. So, although this particular map is not one to one for how you might be organizing, I want you to step back and think about the web of your community. Think about the web of power for the issue or the candidate that you are trying to elect. What would that look like? And if you weren't thinking about it in a hierarchy, if you weren't just thinking about who has money, who people care about, and you were instead thinking about relationships, how would that change the way that you think about who's viable and who isn't? How would that change how you think about power and the idea that we have so much of it, even if it isn't always measured by money? And lastly, our last bucket of our class this evening is about respect. RESPECT. And I could talk about this all day long. I could talk about respect all day long. I got into politics because I love the people. I have a heart of service. I really do. I love serving others. And it feels good to me to work with other people to create change. There have been many different times in my life, in particular as a kid, where I felt powerless. I felt invisible, that people didn't care about me because my family was poor, that I was poor, navigating college, being in the minority, navigating politics, oftentimes being the only Black girl, being one of the only people from the Midwest or from Ohio in a system dominated by the coast. I've had to think a lot about respect. And I made Black Campaign School in order to hold respect for Black voters and Black people, because we deserve it. And there are so many different ways in which Black people are disrespected in our system and disrespected electorally. And that's coming up over and over again in what people are seeing or telling us at the ballot box. And so I want to remind us of this. Anytime in a presentation that you see bird's eye view, just know that it's my opinion. It's what I believe. And so I want you to be thinking about what you believe about respect in our system as well. What would it mean to feel respected? What would it mean to feel like it's a true exchange between your government? Because I believe that democracy, as aspiring as ours is, democracy is the forum in which the people and their government have an exchange. It's where we get to talk to each other. In what other way do you get to truly interface with the people who represent you and interface with the government where you pay taxes? Democracy facilitates that for all of us. It's got to be respectful, not just because it's the right thing to do, because we're in an exchange. We pay our taxes. We participate because that's our expectation. That's the social contract. So representation, responsiveness from our leaders, that's baseline. That's in our social contract. It's in our Constitution. And I've loved being an organizer, because I absolutely love the relationship between a person thinking about power and their community. An organizer is taught to map the resources of our communities so that we can make plain to everybody how we can win together. How delicious is that? In State of Black Voters, I talk about our win number. Go back and do the nerdy stuff, learn about how to get your win number in elections. But organizing is about a game of addition and multiplying all the people that you have assembled so that you can get something done collectively. And so you want to make sure that that relationship is one of mutual respect. How are you showing that? In your campaign plan, in your strategies. If you're a person, you're like, I'm actually not a professional person. I'm watching for class because I just care about my community. All good. In what way are you engaging in respect? You may be frustrated. You're like, I don't know why people don't care about this more. I care about this so much. This is so obvious to me. How can you slow down and really think about the things that the people around you are going through that might prevent them from feeling the way that you do? That's respect. Seeing other people in their individuality, in having empathy. That's that respect. And that's because love is so corny, it's so romantic. But love is at the center of all service. You cannot serve the people if you don't care about them and love the people. And we're currently in this crisis of morality. We're in a crisis of goodness. We believe the bad guys are winning everywhere. The bad guys are winning. But thousands and thousands of people across the country are still serving each other in all of these micro ways, sometimes macro. How can we beam that to the sky, beam that up so that we truly are respecting each other? It's not about who we prefer. It's not about saying, oh, well, I only do this for Democrats. I only do this for people who agree with me. No, I'm in service of my community. I educate the people that need to be educated. All right. If you are here, you are a different type of leader. I was going to sing to you. But if you are here, you are already a different type of leader. If you are a Black camper, you're a type of leader, you're thinking porch by porch. You're thinking about you. You're thinking about the people around you. You're thinking about this broader community. And we really need you to be doing that. Because actually, in this last season of electoral change, this last decade of electoral change, we moved the needle. Black voters, Black leaders, the Black political infrastructure was reaching voters in the millions, was raising money, was building respect for Black issues in the millions, broad stream. And then the pandemic of 2020 really shifted so much of the conditions of our people in our communities. And so our job has really changed. People don't want us on their porches the way that they used to. They don't want us sitting at our kitchen table the same way. The world has shifted. People are more worried, more anxious, more depressed, more untrustworthy. And so we have to think porch by porch about our strategies. And that means we're disrupting the status quo in every single thing that we do. So when we talk about money, when we talk about power, when we talk about respect, we spend so much time talking about how we don't have it, how there isn't enough money, how our organizations and strategies are being defunded, and they are. Black people right now have a right to be frustrated, to be mad, to feel abandoned and disrespected. But we got us. We have the ability in everything that we do to show that we acknowledge and respect the people that we serve. So we have to disrupt. We have to tell the truth. And so what I'm going to share with you, it is not exhaustive. I want you to add up in here. Send me your ideas and your solutions on how we can disrupt these systems and bring power to the people, bring power to our people. We disrupt the status quo of money by hiring and paying fairly. We disrupt the status quo by utilizing election money to vitalize our communities. I talked about $20 billion. I've been showing you maps that show what the national parties think is important to our communities. How do we leverage those resources to have lasting power? Oh, y'all want to throw a get out the vote rally? How are we leveraging that and harnessing those resources? Oh, you want to come to my community and beg them to vote for you? How are we leveraging that outreach so that we can be talking to people about what they want to be talking about, disrupting that power? We get to measure success by what we measure success by. Every single article is going to say how much each candidate is raising. This person has $850 million. This person has $20 million. How are we measuring our support and our power? By things that money can't buy, like integrity, like trust, like people showing up to our campaign offices? How are we telling people that we always have food at our campaign offices? We always feed the people at every event we have. How are we showing people through our program that actually there are some things that money truly can't buy your support for? Recognizing that billionaires have billions of dollars to be playing around in our democracy, but everyday people give generously all day long. Our campaigns, our strategies are fueled by everyday people giving $25. If that's you, thank you. I give in all sorts of ways in my community. I always have candidates and leaders that I do my very, very best to give a little bit, because I know that in an electoral system, they are being measured by how much they raise. I have an incredible city councilwoman named Kendra Brooks, and I'll give her $100 every chance that I have that extra, because I want it to be shown in the FEC that I care about how she's representing us. But you know what I also do? I go to my farmer's market each weekend and I spend $20 with a Black farmer. I spend $20 with a Black family that are selling products. I also go to my local community fridge and I make sure that I drop off extra resources where I can. I'm not acting like a martyr. I'm saying that I've been thoughtful about my own contribution in a world where a billionaire could make me feel like I can't make a difference. Actually, my few $100s that I can give, it does make a difference. It makes a difference where I live. It makes a difference in my political condition. And so I think about that and I harness that. And I'm asking you to be thinking about that over these next months and over these next years as we leverage our power. We have the opportunity to remind people that our power is in the people. In 2020, in one of the biggest voter turnout years of the last decade, or the last 20 years, we had 25 million people marching in the streets for Black lives. We had 25 million people standing up for racial justice. No wonder, look, the scales are tipping. No wonder people were motivated to make their voices heard, because they were shoulder to shoulder with their neighbors. They were shoulder to shoulder with folks. So how are we reminding people that our power is with each other? Our power is when we can see each other. All right. Yes, relationship is at the core of engagement. We know this. Thank you. Thank you. We disrupt the status quo on power by sharing information, sharing details. So many orgs, they'll share their voter information, share their technology, share their scripts, share their lists. Come on now, we can do it. That's what makes movement so juicy. That's what makes coalitions so important. And now we also have the power in those spaces to be extractive, to not give credit where credit's due. But we're going to get right with ourselves and make sure that we are thinking about disrupting power by acting in accordance to our values. We're going to invite. This is so important to me. Every single time you do outreach, you're making an invitation. You're making an invitation to a person to participate with you, to engage in their democracy, to engage in their community. So how do you want to be invited to things? I know I don't want to be dragged anywhere or told or forced. I don't want to be forced to do anything. Actually, I'm an Aquarius, so you actually can't force me to do anything. But we can't force people to do anything. Everything we're doing in this electoral space is an invitation, okay? Let's make them delicious. We have the opportunity to co-govern. We have seen this in Jackson, Mississippi, Detroit, Michigan. There are places all over the country that are seeing their leaders create new process so that their constituents can engage in the budgeting process, can engage in setting the policy priorities where they live. We design our worlds. If you're a leader now, if you're a candidate, why couldn't you design an entirely fresh participatory process for your people? That's the power that we take when we disrupt the system. And I want you to include education. Train our people as you go. Train your staff. Train your neighborhood. Have pop-up education spaces. Tell them about Black Campaign School. Inform everybody. It's okay we don't know things. Information is kept from us. And so how are we making that a part of our everyday outreach? Can people access you? Are you taking shortcuts because it's easier, it's better, a person wants you to? Oftentimes, the service-oriented way, the care-focused way, it can feel like the long way. It can feel like the multi-step process. But power is usually not fast. In fact, when power happens really fast, usually it can crumble really fast as well. When power is built over time, when it's accumulated, that's when you have this strong foundation that you can really count on. Some of our wins over the last decade, they happened in these incredibly important moments where we were activated towards power. But what we weren't able to do is to catalyze people into long-term political homes so that we could keep coming back to them. So we did lose some people who are like, you know what, actually, y'all not talking about what I thought you were. Actually, we have the opportunity to bring people into the fold for the long term. We're going to look back in 10 years and see the seeds we planted right now, just the same way we see how we've been building from 2016. In 20 years, we're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, the long way yielded us an entirely different governance system. The long way yielded us faith and trust from people. That means that we are debating. We do have more access and more equality in our elections. That's possible. That's absolutely possible when we lead by example. So don't let these people tell you that power has to be about control, that you have to learn how to control other people in order to have power. Power is delicious when shared. I have had some really, really powerful positions in politics where I got to lead millions of dollars of budgets, hundreds and hundreds of people. I had power. I had power to change course and to make the strategy. But what I love the opportunity to do is to see everyone else in their power and to create process so that power didn't just feel like micromanaging. It felt like multiplication. And that's our opportunity. That's our opportunity to make people feel like our system is worth engaging in, like our future is worth fighting for. And lastly, respect. We know that information is respect. We know that excellent outreach, that includes the language of the people we're outreaching, that includes the type of music, the place that they're engaging, all of that is about respect. The willingness to explain, having curiosity, having humility, having patience, demonstrating that you see that this is everything that we're doing is an invitation that is about mutual respect. I respect you, so I invite you in to being a voter. I respect our community, so I invite you into seeing how all of this works together. I respect our work together, so I share you information that helps you understand the bigger picture. Respect is at the core of winning. In some of the places where we're losing trust, we're losing participation. Is the places where people feel that we don't see them, we don't care about them, and we're not affirming that they don't feel respected. So let's up our integrity. Let's up our respect for each other, for Black people, for Black strategy, for investing in Black voters. And we can do anything when we go together. So with that, I just want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you learned a little something. I hope that I left you with a lot to think about. This was our fourth class out of 6. I've got 2 more to go. I would love to hear from you. What do you want me to talk about? What have I already talked about that you want me to go deeper? I've been thinking about Get Out the Vote, GOTV. I've been thinking about going deeper in running for office. I've been thinking about doing like a November state of the play, going deeper. You tell me, what do you think I should be doing? Let me know. You can contact me. I'm reading your emails. win@blackcampaignschool.org. I'm on Instagram, Black Camp Bird, Black Campaign School. I'm on Substack, and I will be publishing some of this information here, the classes here on Substack. So if you love a long form article, follow me on Substack. I would also love to read what you're writing. And then I'm going to be talking that shit on TikTok. And so I want you to follow me there as well. Okay. I'm hearing running for office is one. Very good. Keep them coming. I thank y'all so much. I love you. I truly, truly do. I know that, let me actually talk directly to you. I know that a lot is going on. We have natural disasters. It's been raining so much, flooding in Philly. We've got just continued violence. There's a lot of information moving, a lot of competing priorities in all parts of our lives. But let's stick together. We can do anything when we stick together. So keep coming back here. Tell a friend or family member about Black Campaign School. And I really look forward to seeing you next week. Lots of love. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks.